We are live. Hello, everybody. Paul Romero, caught me chowing. Sell a house, wholesale real estate training. No, wholesale real estate investing. Number 167. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated this morning because my other Hangout, for some reason, there's a problem with the email. It's got to be with the email because this one's working just fine. It can't be the browser because it's on the same browser. So it's got to be within the email. And I don't know why, but it's having major problems, and it's really throwing off the start of my day. Have all these great plans and all these great ideas and ready to go, and then it doesn't happen. And you know what? It's kind of life. It pretty much happens all the time, doesn't it? We make the greatest plans and have everything ready to go. Next thing you know, boom, it all blows up. Doesn't work out how you planned it. Well, that's why, being a warrior, having the wherewithal to be able to just take it, get back up, brush yourself off, look around, figure out what happened, and keep going is a big, powerful tool to put in your toolbox, put in your soul. So we are picking up in How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This is what we've been starting to work on. What kind of glare do I have going on here? Ooh. It's what we've been starting to work on every new op day for the past I don't know, a few weeks, months, something like that. We are into chapter 1. We didn't finish chapter 1 last session on new op day. We only got, quite honestly, about what? Well, we got about 4 or 5 pages in, I guess. And we got fairly far. So anyway, what we were talking about here in chapter 1, if you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. This is from part 1, which is fundamental techniques in handling people. Okay, fundamental techniques in handling people. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. What does that mean? Well, if you want to induce the best out of someone, are you going to accomplish that by pissing them off? It's kind of what it means right there. Or, is it really saying that, when you piss people off, you actually induce the worst out of them? So what he really gets into talking about in this book, in this first chapter, is the principle. The basic principle out of this whole chapter is very simply this: don't criticize, don't condemn, and don't complain. Okay? The chapter starts off by talking about, how people how they can very easily see no wrong in themselves. And I mean, comparing it to, vicious criminals, murderers like Al Capone and Two Gun Crowley and Dutch Schultz, who thought of themselves as public benefactors and being punished for doing good. kind of interesting. And then the prison warden of Sing Sing talking about how, doesn't matter what the crime that the inmate has done, they will justify for you exactly why they had to be fast on the trigger or, crack that safe or whatever it was that they done. So people will, they won't condemn themselves. They won't criticize themselves. And so how do you think they react when we do it to them? That's kind of what this is all about. Basically, we covered the part of criticism being dangerous because it wounds a person's precious pride and hurts his sense of importance and arouses resentment. That's big right there. It arouses resentment. You know, the minute when you criticize somebody, all of a sudden, you know, they're against you. They're not with you anymore. So, you know, if this is somebody that you're working with, somebody on your team or whatnot, the minute you criticize them for doing something wrong or you know, incorrectly or whatever, you've lost that person. They're no longer on your team anymore. They're no longer in harmony with you, working towards a common goal. They're now working against you. So he mentions that criticism engenders, I'm sorry, the resentment that the resentment that criticism engenders can demoralize employees, family members, and friends, and will not correct the situation that has been condemned. So do you see where I'm talking about here? How powerfully negative criticism is. Is there such a thing as constructive criticism? I mean, really? I don't think so. Okay, so we talked about Lincoln and his antics and how he turned into be, you know, by not criticizing something, a very special human being that walked the face of this earth and did very good stuff. Don't criticize them. One of the lines that he would tell his wife when she sort of, you know, rose up against the people of the South, he would tell her, "Don't criticize them. They are just what we would be under similar circumstances." And that is so very true. It doesn't matter who you are now today. If you were to, you know, pull yourself out of this position, go back in time and transplant yourself into that person's position, you would be exactly that, you know, and then fast forward back to now, you would be that person. Under similar circumstances, that person, you would be exactly, they are exactly what you would be. So consider that. Think about that. It's not, we're very interesting creatures, human beings, and we are 100% a product of our environment. It's where we came from and, you know, what we were surrounded with throughout our years that makes us who we are. So understanding who the other person is and where they come from can help you to avoid criticism. Okay, so all right, okay, this is where we left off. Now he talked about writing a letter to a general that, you know, failed to accomplish potentially a very powerful mission. And he never sent the letter because, well, no, he never sent the letter. The author was thinking, this is the author's thoughts, not specifically Lincoln's, but the author was thinking that, you know, if he sent this letter, it will relieve his feelings, but it will make Meade try to justify himself. It will make him condemn me. It will arouse hard feelings, impair all his further usefulness as a commander, and perhaps force him to resign. One criticizing letter of his failure to accomplish a mission or to even engage in that mission when ordered to could potentially cause all those things. And it comes all the way down to every level. President Roosevelt had a picture of Lincoln on his ceiling and would always, whenever faced with a perplexing problem, would, you know, kick back and look up and think to himself, what would Lincoln do? And, you know, if he were in my shoes. And so he drew power from that and thinking about, you know, how President Lincoln would have accomplished something. I actually drew power from that too, in just rereading actually that little bit of the book, there was a perplexing problem that we had, and this actually got me thinking about a better way than what we were thinking about approaching it as. And sure enough, nothing ever came of it, and everything worked out just fine. However, had we gone the way we were originally thinking, it could have been very disastrous. So just in that first 12 pages here, plus the intros, this book has already made a huge difference. This is an interesting thing right here. Do you know someone you would like to change or regulate or improve? Hey, that's fine. I'm all for it. But why not begin on yourself? From a purely selfish standpoint, that is a lot more profitable than trying to improve others. Yes, and a lot less dangerous. Don't complain about the snow on your roof, said Confucius, when your own doorstep is unclean. I mean, don't complain about the snow on your neighbor's roof when your own doorstep is unclean. Trying to drive home the point there, obviously, of, if you're going to criticize somebody, actually criticize yourself first. I'm just going to go through a few little pieces that I highlighted here in this book that really just kind of bring out some powerful thoughts. If you and I want to stir up a resentment tomorrow that may rankle across the decades and endure until death, just let us indulge in a little stinging criticism. It doesn't go away. That's how powerful it is. One criticizing effort to another human being is a nearly insurmountable recuperation between, to mend the bonds of where that relationship once was. That's how powerful criticism is. And he's talking about, rankle across the decades and endure until death. I mean, the part about, go back to the over here, the part about the resentment that criticism engenders in demoralizing, rankles, meaning carries forth throughout the decades. It doesn't go away. Somebody will never forget that. One time is all it takes, and somebody will never forget that. When dealing with people, let us remember we are not dealing with creatures of logic. This is very, very important here. We're dealing with creatures of emotion, creatures bristling with prejudices and motivated by pride and vanity. It's all about the emotion. It has nothing to do with the facts and what's actually right there. That's why criticism is so devastating, because it cuts right to the heart and soul. Criticism cuts right into their prejudices. It goes against basically what they think, and it damages it, and it cuts straight into their pride, obviously, because you're condemning them for being wrong, and their vanity. Criticism just cuts right through to the soul of those three things, which, when you're dealing with a creature of emotion, how powerful, how quickly is that ever going to be forgotten? Let's see here. Benjamin Franklin, the secret of his success. I will speak ill of no man and speak all the good I know of everybody. That's a pretty good credo to live by. I will speak ill of no man and speak all the good I know of everybody. I think you could probably Make a lot, keep a lot of friends that way. How about that? Keep a lot of friends that way and make them. Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. But it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. Character and self-control. Okay? How many fools do you know that have any character whatsoever or any self-control whatsoever? I know of one right here. Yes, I used to be a fool. I had no character whatsoever and no self-control whatsoever. I've been changing that. I criticized a lot of people. They're no longer in my life. Some people that, probably I'd like to have in my life along the way. Anyway, a great man shows his greatness by the way he treats little men. A great man shows his greatness by the way he treats little men. So we're talking about everyone here, not just those who can, potentially advance you in life, those that are equal to and or above you, the people below you too, just as important, maybe even more so, because those are the people that support you. This is a great story. I got to read this story. It's very short here. This is about, this is going to really bring home the power of criticizing versus not criticizing. Okay. Bob Hoover, a famous test pilot and frequent performer at air shows, was returning to his home in Los Angeles from an air show in San Diego. I'm not really sure what that. Anyway, as described in the magazine Flight Operations, at 300 feet in the air, both engines. Oh, okay. He was returning. Now I get it. Let me start that over. Bob Hoover, a famous test pilot and frequent performer at air shows, was returning to his home in Los Angeles from an air show in San Diego. In his plane. I get it now. As described in the magazine Flight Operations, at 300 feet in the air, both engines suddenly stopped. By deft maneuvering, he managed to land the plane, but it was badly damaged, although nobody was hurt. However, Hoover's first act after the emergency landing was to inspect the airplane's fuel. Just as he suspected, the World War II propeller plane had been flying and had been fueled with jet fuel rather than gasoline. Apparently there's a big difference. Upon returning to the airport, he asked to see the mechanic who had serviced his plane. The young man was sick with agony of his mistake. Tears streamed down his face as Hoover approached. He had just caused the loss of a very expensive plane and could have caused the loss of 3 lives as well. You can imagine Hoover's anger, right? One could anticipate the tongue lashing that this proud and precise pilot would unleash for that carelessness. Only makes sense, right? But Hoover didn't scold the mechanic. He didn't even criticize him. Instead, he put his arm around the man's shoulder and said, "To show you that I am sure you will never do this again, I want you to service my F-51 tomorrow." Now think about that. Put yourself in the mechanic's shoes here. Okay? He knows what happened. He is completely to blame. There is no excuse for his action, except for, basically just lack of paying attention and all of that. So there's nothing whatsoever. I mean, all he can do is, basically say he's sorry and take his whooping, so to speak. And had Bob Hoover approached him, and smacked him upside his head maybe and said, "You imbecile, how could you be so stupid to put jet fuel into a gasoline engine? Do you know what, do you realize what you've done? You've destroyed a, whatever, $200,000 airplane, and you nearly killed 3 people. How could you be so foolish and stupid?" Which is what most everyone would probably do. And what would that do for the mechanic? Well, number one, he would probably instantaneously, in an effort of apology, resort to justification. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't paying attention. The gas cans were right next to each other. I had all this stuff going on in my mind with the home family and whatever, and I just grabbed the wrong can. I didn't think." And I mean, he's justifying the situation. But at the same time, he's justifying, he's also thinking, you know, yeah, I get it. I'm an idiot. You don't have to tell me. Everything you're saying is true. It's all of that negativity is being, sort of solidified within the mechanic's mind that he is an imbecile, that he is, stupid and worthless and shouldn't be on this job, and he's dangerous, and all the, that stuff's now sinking into his own mind. And after something like that, how would he be performing at his job from that day forward? Just as badly, if not worse, than he was before, because now, it's solidified, it's proven that he's incompetent. So therefore, why should he try? I'm lucky to be able to keep this job. All I got to do is the very least that I could possibly do to make sure that I can keep this job, because I'm such an idiot. What else could I be able to do in life? Now think about what happened with Bob Hoover. To show that I'm sure that you'll never do this again, I want you to service my F-150 tomorrow. The guy's broken down. He's expecting, again, he knows this is all his fault. He's expecting the tongue lashing. He's already forming in his mind the thoughts of how stupid he is and what an imbecile he is and how incompetent that he is for making this mistake and endangering lives and destroying an aircraft. And Bob says, "To show you I am sure you'll never do this again, I want you to service my F-150 tomorrow." And the guy is ready to just break down and lose it. And instead, he hears that. I mean, would that swell the pride inside of someone? Because I am sure, to show you that I'm sure you'll never do this again. You think I'll never do this again? Well, you're darn right I'll never do this again. It was a bad mistake, and it was only because I wasn't paying attention. I will always pay attention from now on. I mean, that change of thought, this man would walk away from this one sentence in his life, opposed to being a broken down, worthless, barely doing just enough to get by, to a guy who now pays 150% attention to every detail of what he does, probably starts becoming the guy around the shop who does everything better than everyone else, probably ends up becoming a leader of that shop, just because of one sentence. The difference between one sentence, completely crippling and debilitating, to completely uplifting and empowering. Would there be, and I mentioned this earlier about, is there such a thing as constructive criticism? Would there be a constructive criticism statement that could go in there? I don't know. I really don't know what the hell constructive criticism is. To my mind right now, especially after reading this first chapter here, there's no such thing as constructive criticism. It's either criticism, which is destructive, period, end of conversation, or it's positive, empowering, and uplifting statements. I mean, to me, in my mind, that's all there is. So whenever someone says, I have some constructive criticism for you, or if you say, or if you're thinking that, you know, I'm the type of person who enjoys a little constructive criticism now and then, I don't believe that that is a true statement, and that, you know, I think it's a cop-out to the inability, I think it's a cop-out to inabilities for people to actually get away from criticizing and into empowering others. We have so much power over other people. It's amazing. We really, really do have a lot of power over other people in, you know, not just in, you know, directing them into things to do and stuff like that. I'm talking about, you know, empowering other people, in building up other people, in, you know, helping other people help themselves without even doing anything, just in the words that we speak. That's so amazing. It goes on here to talk about the next thing he says, that, you know, often parents are tempted to criticize their children. And right now you might be thinking that I'm going to say, well, don't do that. But, you know, he doesn't say that. He just says, before you criticize them, read one of the classics of American journalism called Father Forgets. And there's an outline of it in here. It's in the book. Father Forgets, right there, by Livingston Larned. W. Livingston Larned writes this poem called Father Forgets. And I'm just going to read a quick little caption out of this. Listen, son, I am saying this as you lie asleep, one little paw crumpled under your cheek and the blonde curls stickily wet on your damp forehead. I have stolen into your room alone just a few minutes ago. As I sat reading my paper in the library, a stifling wave of remorse swept over me. Guiltily, I came into your bedside. These are the things I was thinking, son. I had been cross to you. I scolded you as you were dressing for school because you gave your face merely a dab with a towel. I took you to task for not cleaning your shoes. I called out angrily when you threw one of your things on the floor. At breakfast, I found fault too. You spilled things. You gulped down your food. You put your elbows on the table. You spread your butter on too thick. And as you scattered off to play, and I made for my train, you turned and waved a hand and called, "Goodbye, Daddy." And I frowned and said in reply, "Hold your shoulders back." I'm just going to skip a little further. I am afraid I have visualized you as a man. Yet as I see you now, son, crumpled and weary in your cot, I see that you are still a baby. Yesterday, you were in your mother's arms, your head on your shoulder. I have asked too much. What is it that you're asking of other people? Is it too much? You know, who is that other person? That's what this really comes down to. Understanding who the other person is. Don't criticize them. Understand who they are. Understand what you're asking of them. Understand if they're the right person to fit that bill, you know. And what he says here at the very end, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism. And it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. As Dr. Johnson said, God himself does not propose to judge man until the end of his days. Why should you and I? Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Principle 1. Fundamental techniques in handling people. Principle 1, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. This is very, very powerful stuff, okay? It's 9 o'clock. I thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoy where we're going with this, how to win friends and influence people. Again, what does this have to do with wholesale real estate? Well, everything. Because real estate is relationships. If you want a deal, you're going to have to deal with people. If you're not dealing with them properly, I mean, one little criticism, you know, why would you guys let the house get so messy? Boom, you're done. Out, son. We're not selling to you. Next. You need to be on top of your game. This book is the ladder to the top, okay? That's what it has to do with wholesale real estate. Now, if you're interested in wholesale real estate, send us an email, propertynoodlers@gmail.com. We're building a team, a very powerful team that is being very productive and successful and making everybody lots of money and learning some people how to get involved with wholesale real estate. And if that's you, send us an email. With that, O universe, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom with which to create, with which to make better use of the riches given to me at birth, consisting of the power to control and direct my own mind to whatever end I might desire. That's a powerful statement too. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for being here on New Up Day, and we'll see you back on Wednesday for